let's see. Now, well, there's the introduction, and there's also chapter one, but that's just a little summary of all the bad stuff that's happening. The real estate bubble bursting, the stock market crashing, the financial crisis of 2008. But the thing that you really need to know, it actually starts on page 28. I'm hoping you might be able to see it. It says, if you can't read it, it'll say, Bubbles Are Us, a quick review of America's bubble economy. Now, I'll try to simplify the details a lot, but basically there are six bubbles going on in the world right now, and four of those six bubbles have already popped. The first bubble to pop was the real estate bubble, you know, which is where the whole subprime mortgage thing and the AAA mortgage thing collapsed and Lehman Brothers collapsed and et cetera, et cetera. So I want to emphasize this part right here in this picture, that the reason why there was a bubble is because income growth went up 2% from 2001 to 2006, but the price of housing went up 80%. So, in other words, the prices of homes went up 40 times more than the average amount of money that Americans were making. And, if that's not a bubble, then I don't know what is. If this was a realistic increase in asset values for real estate, then it should have been around 2 to 4% because that's how much money people could afford. So obviously, the bubble had the pop, and it did. This part describes the exact causes such as too much loan money, too much easy credit, adjustable rate mortgages with 0% interest rates for like a few months, et cetera, et cetera. The next was the stock market bubble. This was the other bubble that I almost forgot. I should have mentioned. The reason why I'm talking about these bubbles is because there are six bubbles that are currently interlinked and are simultaneously raising prices and inflation, and because they're interlinked, when one pops, all of them are going to pop. That's why everyone's finances are going to go down. And you have to understand each bubble individually before you can connect them to see the whole picture. So that's why I'm going over the whole thing. And in future videos, I will be able to describe each bubble in more detail, but I need to try to keep this under 15 minutes. So yeah, the next bubble is the stock market bubble. And here in figure 2.3, you can see how from 1929 to about 1980, it didn't really go up too much. But then since 1980, it shot up by almost according to this, says an astonishing 1,400%. Now, there's obviously a lot of theories, but one thing that's never talked about is the reason why our stock market bubbled, literally, was because we were getting a lot of foreign investment capital. And that's actually important to know because that's what's going to cause the dollar bubble to collapse. So basically, our economy, the U.S. economy, because I live in New York City, the United States, is pretty much being propped up by foreign investors. China, Japan, Europe, Africa, not Africa, Australia, etc. So, all that capital is just being used and spent to, build businesses, build stuff, manufacture goods, etc. So, when inflation and the value of the dollar eventually goes down, the amount of foreign capital that is invested in this country will present a huge foreign currency exchange risk, meaning all their dollar denominated assets, say in Australia, like the Australian dollar, those people will pretty much lose money over time. I mean, I want to try to avoid getting too technical because it would take me a long time to explain. But all you have to know is foreigners are going to literally lose their money as the dollar goes down, and that's why they're going to pull all their money out of America, and that's what's going to cause not only a stock market bubble to collapse, which it kind of did in 2008, 2009, but it will also cause a major shutdown and recession in the U.S. the likes of which we will have never seen. And because everybody relies on the United States to pretty much buy their stuff, if we can't afford to buy their stuff, guess what? They're not going to make any money. Canada, Europe, Australia, China, Japan, and they're going to lose money, and they're going to have to lay off people, and it's just chain reaction that's just going to make people lose a lot of their jobs and livelihoods. Uh, this one I'm still not really I understand it too much. Obviously, when you read the book, you can read the details. But there was another bubble called the private debt bubble, and this one is where I believe. Let me see. Uh, yeah, it doesn't mention it, but like lenders like Lehman Brothers and Bear Stearns, who were heavily invested in private debt, specifically mortgages, there was a lot of money being flown dumped into that because people were the real estate boom was going up, and people just wanted to make as many loans as they could just so they could make their profits. But when the housing prices crashed, people defaulted on their mortgages, and then all the people who made those private debt loans went, you know, disappeared. And that's why Bear Stearns and Lehman Brothers just literally disappeared like overnight. And you could have made a pretty penny off of that too if you bought like 1 month put options on it where you can profit by riding the stock price downward. Unfortunately, I was in college at the time, so I didn't have any money to make that play. But man, it would have been sweet. All right, so the next bubble, the fourth bubble, is the discretionary spending bubble. And this bubble talks about, well, pretty much what that means is, uh, you know, luxuries, diamonds, fast food, or, eating at, I don't know, Gordon Ramsay's steak and cheese. Basically, luxury stuff are optional things that you don't need to buy, but you want to buy because it makes you feel good. It's a luxury. It's cool, and in the case of me, I really like eating good food. So, um, this discretionary bubble actually bursted around when the stock market went down too. So, and I remember that because I remember I was looking to buy into Saks Fifth Avenue stock, and man, did they take a pounding back in the financial crisis of 2008. And this one's pretty easy to understand because in a recession, people lose their jobs, which means they're not making as much money, which means they can't spend as much on luxury goods and stuff. So that bubble is already bursted. Now we get to the really two important bubbles, the dollar bubble, and this is on page 33, and the U.S. government debt bubble. Now these two bubbles are actually growing. That's actually what the Federal Reserve and many central banks throughout the world are trying to prop up and reinflate. The dollar bubble is pretty much, we're the world's reserve currency. Everybody trades basically in U.S. dollars. And, we're kind of messing things up by printing a lot of U.S. dollars by, quantitative easing, QE1, QE2. It's only a matter of time before QE3 comes out. I just don't know when. And Ben Bernanke, the current chairman of the Federal Reserve, is like desperately trying to jumpstart the economy, but the problem is he erroneously thinks that by flooding the world with more U.S. dollars, it will literally jumpstart the economy. And what this is saying in Aftershock is that that's not the problem. The problem is that we have too much bad debt. We have no actual productivity increases. And all he's doing, Ben Bernanke and the Federal Reserve, all they're doing is creating an inflation that will literally kill us. And nobody wants to hear that. So obviously, you need to read this book and get the details, and eventually I'll, because I'm still trying to read and understand all this stuff. So I still need to go through it in future videos. So that's pretty much what the dollar bubble is. And then the government debt bubble is basically we have a credit limit. We're at $16 trillion. And, eventually there will be a point where we just cannot borrow any more money because there's no more money for people to lend us. And that combined with foreign currency losses means that people are just not going to lend us any more money because it's just not worth it. You know, if the dollar drops 50%, all the money that foreigners have lent us, they instantly lose 50%. And that's what is happening. And that's why when we cannot borrow anymore because of that phenomenon, combined with the dollar dropping in value because we're printing too much damn money, that's it, man. The bubbles burst. And everybody loses everything. So I want so that's pretty much why I'm doing this, because I want to try to prevent people from being victims of it and instead can actually profit from that, because pretty much those are the only two choices. You either lose everything or you get rich like you've never dreamed of. And I was trying to look for a middle ground solution, and there just isn't going to be any. So, I mean, this is tough to listen to, I know, but at the end of the day, I know what it's like to lose everything. I've had it happen to me several times. And after a while, you just gotta face the music. You just gotta look the truth right in the eye and just, you know, acknowledge reality. And that's the way out. That's how you prosper. That's the optimism that everybody seeks, but it's so hard because you have to look at, the nasty truth that nobody wants to see, nobody wants to hear. So, you know what? Fine, I'll place my faith in God. I mean, for those of you who believe in him. Um, and, I'll just hope for the best and prepare for the worst. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to close this video. Hopefully it doesn't go beyond 15 minutes. And in future videos, I'll try to review some specific chapters in it. So you really need to read this book. It's really good, Aftershock. This one's the second edition. And again, if you want to try to win a free copy of this from Regal Assets, just call this phone number. I won't keep repeating myself like a broken record. So I thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you next video.